Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well.
Yeah.
So, interesting. I have to say, I think you're my first guest that's in a similar situation of having different rehabs, owning different rehabs. So, welcome to the show. I'm excited to jump in and see all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy to talk about it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, what got you into we can talk about this a little bit about your past, which has sort of led you to where you're at today, which, obviously my past led me to where I'm at. But I would love to hear some of that backstory of how you got to the position that you're in with owning and operating some drug rehabs here in court. Well, I guess, I mean, are you considered Northern California? You're more like Central California, right?
Central. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
think it
we are
depends
both in
on who you ask.
California.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, really, when I was incarcerated and went to school to be a drug and alcohol counselor while I was in there. And, I'd been to college before for business. I majored in international business when I was 18 to 23 or so.
Mm.
But when I was incarcerated, I went to all the classes to be a SUD counselor and finished all those. And then when I got out, I went back to school for psychology at
Mm.
Cal State Bakersfield, and I couldn't get a job. No matter where I applied, what I tried to do, I couldn't get hired because of my felony record. So
Mm.
I had a friend in this field that he's in recovery. I grew up with him, and he actually owned a couple places, and I think he still does down in Southern California. So he asked if I'd be interested in working in this field, and I said, yeah, of course I would. So I got a job in business development at Northbound Treatment Services, and kind of just worked my way up from there.
Awesome. And those are the best stories, right? And I'm sure what you experience there, similar to what I do, is the clients respond really well to people who've been in their same situation. Like,
Sure.
there's the respect of you actually do know, and you can tell me because you've been here. But there's also, I want to listen to you because I see that you've overcome your addiction and you're in the spot that you're in. So you tend to get a lot, at least in my rehab, we get a lot better response from the clients when they're able to witness that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, most of our so at the three different facilities that I'm a part of, at least 90% of our staff is like lived experience, meaning they're in recovery
Yeah.
themselves. So, and I mean, it's kind of an industry norm nowadays, but um, I love it. I love it. I love coming to work with people that I can relate to. I love working with the clients that I can relate to. It's like I didn't know what I was missing back in the day when I used to work in the produce business. I exported like grapes and tree fruit and stuff. And
Mm,
I just felt like there was no purpose. Like I didn't
yeah.
feel when I went to bed at night that I had a purpose. I was just earning a paycheck. And so now it's the exact opposite. Like the money is secondary. Like just going to bed at night and being proud of what I do every day. It's so fulfilling. I love it.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, there's nothing like it. No matter what at least for myself, no matter what I contend with during the week with, states and insurances and regulations and just, all the shit we don't like, but it's the seeing the progress and the gratitude and just, literally saving lives. Like there is nothing better, in my opinion, or more worth my while, my attention, my passion, my purpose, our teams, than helping people overcome addiction. Like it is a pretty awesome purpose that we all have here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So obviously, when you were born and raised, you weren't nobody plans to become an addict or go to prison. So
Yep.
how did you end up on that path?
My parents, my dad, well, I mean, based on all the criteria I'm aware of, is an alcoholic. He wouldn't say that like about himself, but so growing up, I was around a lot of partying, alcohol, not really drugs too much, but I kind of associated having a good time as an adult with getting drunk and drinking alcohol and smoking weed and stuff like that. So in high school, I started doing a lot of that. And then when I went to college, I discovered every other drug, you know, and
Mm,
I knew from early on that I had an issue. Like even in high school, I would, I'd drink on the weekends at a party and I would always wake up the next day apologizing about my actions and like knowing,
mm.
oh shoot, I'm embarrassed. Like I can't believe I did that. And then I do it again the next weekend. So I knew like, my drinking was not normal
Yeah.
and everyone around me for the most part would say the same. So when I got to college and started dabbling in other stuff, it was just like pedal to the metal. I ended up owing a lot of money to a lot of people and doing some really stupid things. Never really gotten any legal trouble, save a couple DUIs until I was in my 30s. But was I went to rehab a couple times. I joined the Marines. I did anything I could to like keep the wolves at bay and like
Hmm.
get them off my back. I wasn't
Hmm.
really trying to get clean and sober. I was just trying not to be in trouble or trying
Yeah.
not to be unemployed, and until that mindset changed, there was no change in me. So,
And the Marines, was that like a quick trip in there, or were you there for a
no,
while?
about 5 years. Yeah, I
Oh, that's
joined,
pretty decent.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I went to rehab in 2023 and completed 30 days and I was cured. So then
Yeah.
I joined the Marines like within a month of getting out of treatment. And I did really well in there. It was structured and like the first year especially, yeah, I didn't have time to screw off. So I was doing all kinds of training and combat training and MOS school. And I did
Yeah.
really well in that structured environment. And then once I started getting like weekend leave and hanging out with the guys, like that went out the window pretty quick.
Well, yeah, and there's so much drinking that goes on in the military that is just kind of, like it kind of goes hand in hand, like,
Yeah.
that how everyone blows off steam basically on the weekends.
Yeah, it's part of the culture for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got out of the Marines and then
Jesus.
um,
Sorry.
was able to hide it for a while. I was no longer an addict. Now I'm a Marine. And like,
Mm.
my parents were kind of proud of me again. And, I could get away with it. Bless you.
Sorry, I am
It's okay.
having a heck of an allergy attack.
So yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, it progressed and like it always does, right? It progressed from high school to all the way through my 30s when I got put in prison. You know,
For drinking, for DUI,
um,
for, I mean, you
bank
don't have to
robbery.
say if you're not
No, I'll tell
comfortable.
you, I don't care.
Oh,
You could Google it and find out pretty easy.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I robbed 3 banks.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so
That'll do it.
I passed a note at 3 different banks in Tulare County,
Oh
and
man.
yeah, I had never been in, I'd never been in county jail or anything. So
Wow.
except for the drunk tank when I got a DUI, but like I'd never been booked or anything like that. So
Were you under the influence? Like what
oh
prompted
yeah, I
that?
was I was strung out on prescription pain pills,
Oh yeah.
and
That'll do
like
it.
I was in so much debt. It was a really stupid plan, but I figured, okay, I need money to pay back the people I owe, and I need money to keep my addiction alive, and yeah, it was just a cockamamie plan that it worked once and then it worked again. The third time didn't go so well. So
Mm,
the
mm.
third time I ended up getting in a high-speed chase. Well, I guess I'll explain a little more. So there was a police officer pulled up behind me and I knew I was caught, right? So um, I took my seatbelt off and I turned around and I was in a Jeep. So I turned
Mm.
around and I told him I'm not gonna stop. And then I hit the brake or I hit the gas and I looked for the nearest telephone pole and I
Oh
found
wow.
one. I hit it going about 60
Wow.
and it ended up in the passenger seat. My head was all banged up. I hit the windshield and then ended up in the passenger seat. So the
Did the
telephone pole,
airbags deploy, or was this
yeah.
just straight
Oh
hitting
yeah,
the
the
head?
car was totaled.
Wow.
But the telephone pole, like I drove through it, so it didn't stop me. Like
Okay.
it slowed me down and eventually stopped me, but I went right through it. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be sitting here.
Yeah,
And then
probably better of a telephone pole than like a big like redwood tree.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad I lived.
Yeah,
That day
yeah.
I wasn't so much, but at the moment, when I made that choice, it was kind of like it was in my mind, it was the best option at the time. I
Mhm.
thought, okay, yeah, I can't live with the consequences of my actions. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to go to prison for the rest of my life. Um, so I thought that was it was the easy way out. It was the same thing I'd been doing for years, is like taking the easy road instead of like facing the consequences of my actions. So I tried it again. I tried to take the easy road and it didn't work out so well.
Yeah, you
Um,
tried a full blown like Velma and Louise right there.
a little, yeah. And when I
God,
got
God
out of the
had
vehicle,
different plans for you. You didn't fly off a cliff
yeah,
and die. It's like, nope, you're still here. Guess what you're doing?
yeah, I think about that day a lot. And so after I hit the pole, I realized I wasn't dead, and my ears were ringing, and there was dust, like a big cloud of dust around the car, and I heard cops yelling. And then so I got out of the vehicle, and I got the cops to open fire on me, and then
Yeah.
so I was shot a few times, and then went to the hospital and then to prison.
Wow. Well, thankfully they didn't hit you in any critical places, like because I know that can happen, especially in very high intense situations. The fact that you survived both those things, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, pretty lucky. I wonder why, and especially right after it happened.
Sure.
And I know, but so much has happened in my life since that day. Like I think there's a lot of reasons, but yeah, God didn't have that plan. So now I'm a dad and I have a 5-year-old son. I'm married and have like the career that I'm really proud of and I love. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a blessing that he spared me that day. Yep.
Yeah. And so when did when did your view of what happened kick in? So like were you in jail and you were like, holy shit, this is a second chance. This is what I need to do? Or were you in prison and you're like, I just got to get through this and I have no idea what I'm going to do. Like when did things like shift in your brain and when did you start taking motion or
Yeah.
action to change?
Yeah. So around 2016 in January, I had been in prison and that doesn't sound like that long ago. That's 9 years.
Yeah.
Um, so January of 2016, I was in solitary. I had been in a fight and I kept getting in trouble in there because when I first went in there, I thought like, why not continue to use? Why not? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
I
pretty
lost
easy to do if
everything.
you want to. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And at that point, I was married when I got arrested and that marriage dissolved, like rightfully so. And then my parents wouldn't really talk to me. Friends wouldn't visit. I mean, I was alone. So I kind of thought, well, there's no reason not to use now. I have a free pass.
Hmm.
That got old after a few years of that, maybe 2 years of that. I was in solitary confinement and I just despised the reflection I saw in the mirror. I was just so sick of living like that. And I was started to look at things black and white, meaning like there's the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. And sometimes it's not going to be that easy to spot, but I'm going to at least make an effort to do the right thing. Like
Hmm.
I either had to live that way or just say F it and go all the way off the deep end and just keep using it until I died. And I didn't want to do that. So I started trying to just like make the positive choices. And that started very simply, like, going to church on Sunday, and while I was incarcerated, started going to AA and NA meetings where H and I would come in the walls and I would go to the weekly AA meeting. I
Hmm.
started talking and trying to associate with people that were on that same path, which, they're few and far between in there, but there are some people that are, like they're committed to change. Um,
Yeah.
and so I tried to pal around with those guys. One of them became my sponsor. He was in there he got in a car accident and his passenger died in the accident. He was under the influence, so he was in there for like 14 years. But that gentleman became my sponsor. He now works for me in admissions.
Oh,
So
wow.
he got out a couple years ago and
Yeah.
he works at our facilities. But I think it was a gradual process. Like that change happened slowly and gradually, but also almost all at once.
Yeah.
I didn't I haven't been perfect. I know I don't use or drink, but I still struggle with some things. Um, but it gets easier over time. Like I don't have that obsession that I used to have where like when I first got out of prison, if I was alone on over a weekend, it would drive me crazy. Like I
Mhm.
thought, there's I have no accountability, and like that scared me a little bit. But that it's not like that anymore. So
Good.
I guess it's progressive, and I think the change continues to happen even today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's a lifelong journey. Like I'll never stop learning, growing, putting in the work, constantly trying to improve because
Sure.
what I've seen is if you're not improving, you're declining. So nothing stays the same. So there's got to be almost just continuous action, whatever that looks like, working out, meditation, meetings. Like there's just got to be continual
Sure.
work at growth, or else there will be a decline. And then that other lifestyle starts to look a lot more appealing again.
Yeah, I get in these, I have these routines that I've done for years where a lot of the self-care you just
Hmm.
named are like part of that routine, right? So waking up in the morning and exercising and um, doing a gratitude list and
Hmm.
reading some literature that morning. And then, you know, doing my 10th step every night before I go to bed and like contacting people who I may have been rude to that day or I wronged in some way. And it becomes like I need to do those things to feel right now,
Yeah.
which is a stark contrast to what I needed to do to feel right, 10, 15 years ago.
Well, yeah. But then you look at how much time and energy and effort went into being a good addict. Like that consumed a lot of our
Yeah.
lives. So so
Yeah.
when you take
Yeah.
that away, it's like, besides the job, you gotta fill it with other things because it was like a
Sure.
full-time plus kind of job just to keep any kind of addiction going. That is not just like a little dabble part-time thing. Like it's a lot of work that needs to be shifted
It's a
into something more
commitment
positive.
for sure. Yeah.
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 Awesome. So,
So
uh, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, no, no.
So I think what you found is similar to me, just that feeling of giving back and helping others that were once like you. And
Sure.
that in itself, I mean, for me, it's always gratitude. There's just like to be able to help other people get a new chance on life. And I do think we're very fortunate to live in times because it wasn't always this way. Even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was a big stigma about addiction or people that were formerly addicts. And I feel like a lot of that is sort of waned down a lot where everybody has struggles. And so the more you can like openly, talk about your struggles or what's going on or how you handle it or how you cope with it, I really think that sort of helps other people go, I want to get help because maybe that doesn't make me a bad person anymore.
Sure. Yeah. I noticed that a lot, even, with clients coming in where they're coming to get treatment, but they want to keep their problem a secret. And I
Mhm.
always worry about that. And I'll tell them when upon admission, I'll say, that's not the healthiest way to go about getting better. Like the more people that know, the better, because then they can hold you accountable. Like keeping secrets it's a bad start. But
Yeah.
usually people get there over time. They realize, this isn't something I have to be ashamed of.
Yep.
This is something that I overcame. I should be proud of,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I think a
I
lot
don't.
of that comes from the work of like handling the shame and guilt
Yep.
and all the judgment and the things that are really, yes, society puts on you, but also very self-imposed. And as you start doing the work and you can start forgiving yourself and giving yourself grace for not excusing all your harmful actions, but you've got to include yourself in part of the like make amends and come to terms with what you're doing. You can't ignore it.
Sure.
That has to be part of the process.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Which again, that's where when you're more vocal or you accept terms and call a spade and then let the people I think that's where the true healing can come, because you can heal yourself, but if the people that are directly affected to you and connected to you, if you don't do any kind of like healing and amends with them, and everybody
Yeah.
kind of knows it's a problem, like you said, your chances for success probably aren't that great.
Yeah. Where I live in the Central Valley of California, it's a little behind the times. Like the stigma is still alive and well in a
Oh,
lot of the
wow.
counties that I'm from.
Yeah.
And like just just admitting that I'm an addict, or talking about where I work and like what I do for a living, and yeah, I can see it in some people's faces. Some of my family actually, like, where
Mm,
they would rather me just not talk about that, and
wow.
usually unfortunately, most of those people that feel that way usually have some skeletons, and like maybe they're struggling with alcohol, or maybe they're struggling with drug addiction. It's yeah, I guess my point is the stigma is still alive and well, unfortunately, in a lot of us.
It can be for sure. Yeah, I had a client, she graduated about a month ago, but she likes to come up to the center and we were working out last night together. And that's what she said. She's like, when I first got sober, like people would say, "Oh, you want a drink?" and it would get awkward and weird. And she felt like she had to explain herself, like, "No, I
Mhm.
don't drink because of this and this." And then that made things awkward. And she's like, and then there's like, you've got to learn and be okay where you get to a point and just say, "Yeah, I don't drink." And then you just continue
Yep.
moving on as opposed to making a big deal, because you're right. If you're
Sure.
in certain circumstances, socially or otherwise, you're the only person not working. It can make, I mean, not working, not drinking, you can make, not you, other people can make themselves feel uncomfortable by being around you, because like you
Sure.
said, it starts to show a mirror of maybe what they don't want to look at.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely the case. Yeah.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. But I think, again, more time goes on, the more we progress, the more outspoken we all are, owning our stuff, being a part of it. I really do feel like we can start to move that sort of pendulum the other way, where even more people want to get help, because it starts to become like that cool thing. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping to make rehab like cool. So people are like, "Damn, dude, I want to go to rehab. That's cool."
Yeah, that's the goal. Like,
Yeah.
like it here, I'm sitting in our one of our new inpatients. It's in Bakersfield. And there's a gym on site. We make
Mm,
sure that like we try to make recovery fun, and like
mhm.
show people that, this is about being healthy, like all around. So you had mentioned a minute ago about involving your loved ones and like have that healing process between one another. And that's a huge part of my recovery is, first of all, like physical health and mental health, but then also relational. So having those healthy relationships with my mom, and rebuilding the relationship with my dad, and talking to my wife and about my problems, and like being open is I learned to do all that stuff through therapy and through like working a program of recovery. So um we definitely like emphasize the involving loved ones and family members in the recovery process. We'll have most of the programs that I oversee, we have like a family day where family comes in, has their own sessions with our therapist, and then meets with their family members with the therapist, and like do private family sessions. And there's a lot of value to that, and not only just accountability and like clear expectations and boundaries being set, but just rebuilding that trust and that love between two people. It's huge. And a lot of times that's what takes us back out, is like we don't have we don't feel like we have support, or our support doesn't even know how to support us, for God's sake. So like educating the family members and educating the addicts about like what a healthy relationship looks like, it's really important. And
Yeah, well, and families are just so hurt, and
yeah,
so you need each other to be open and honest and accepting of what they're willing to hear, because truth will set you free on everything. And so I think it's a very important, and I love that you do a lot of this family working together. It's important to sort of set the record straight, because
sure.
addicts will convince people like they're the crazy, they're not the problem ones with the problem. It's the family member that's crazy. And so there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on, and
Yeah.
hurt and betrayal and
Yep.
all the things. And so it's really important for families and clients to get on the same page and sort of work that out together so that they have a fresh start.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it's better if they are able to do it while the client is in rehab, so that they're not trying to make this work in an environment or situation that has been broken and not working for a while.
Sure. Yeah. When I went to treatment when I was 23, I had created a bunch of wreckage by that point, and more to come after that. But that's what I remember most about that treatment episode was the family sessions, and like having my loved ones come in for the weekend and work with the therapist privately, but then also like we had this come to Jesus meeting where I got to just dump and say everything I had done and try to just clean the slate and start moving forward. And that was the most memorable therapy session I've ever had. It was like or group session that I've ever had, with just being able to be honest, because that's something a lot of us, myself especially, struggled with. Is I started living this lie, and one lie would build upon the other, upon the next, and upon the next, and before long, I don't even know what the truth is anymore, and I can't
Mhm.
remember who I told what, and I'm caught in this web of lies that I end up just isolating, because I if otherwise I'm going to get caught.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
anyway, having the ability to start fresh and like to clear the air with my family was really important. It still makes me a little emotional thinking about it.
Yeah, it's really cathartic. But at the same time, like, families need coaching on how to receive that information, because that can be a pretty heavy burden for them as well if it's not presented in a way of, total accountability and
Sure.
responsibility, where there's like, little hints of blame or that sort of stuff. And that's why I love that you have them all work together with, an impartial-ish person to sort
Hmm.
of help navigate that, because,
Yep.
asking families and addicts to do that on their own without
I
people
mean, that
to
could
sort
be.
of help guide it into being something
Sure.
super constructive could actually be really, I don't want to say detrimental, because truth is truth, but at the same time, it's not putting people into the best situation for a new life. So I think that
Sure.
it's such an important part of the process for
Yeah,
sure.
me too. Me too.
Yeah. So now, do you work directly with clients yourself, or are you more overseeing the rehab there?
So at this point, I'm more working with the staff. About well, yeah, 6 years ago, I started as a director at a small outpatient in Fresno, and it was me and one other like one substance abuse counselor. And so I worked with clients all the time, like doing intakes and doing admissions, and it was a very small program, and we grew it to about 30 clients at any given time, and we had to hire a few people, and then I ended up moving to Touchstone Recovery Center, where I currently am a part owner and the executive director.
Mm,
And initially, I worked with clients all the time. So I would do intake assessments, I would run groups, I did the admissions by myself for the first couple years,
mhm,
until the program got so big, I just couldn't do it anymore. So we went from like an IOP program, so just a simple outpatient program in Fresno, to now we have all levels of care. So we have detox, residential, PHP, IOP, aftercare. Um, the staff went from 5 to 40
mm.
in 4 years. So now, I love what I do, don't get me wrong. And I try to spend as much time with the clients as I can, to stay connected to like the why behind what we do. But yeah, it's become oversight more, and I am more often dealing with staff issues and scheduling and marketing decisions, and I don't get to spend as much time with clients as I'd like to. And then
Yeah.
yeah, when I do get to spend time with clients, it's usually related to our sober livings. So me and a friend of mine opened a sober living about 5 years ago, and
Mm.
now it's grown, and now we have eight. sober living. So they're like gender specific sober livings that are structured environments. We drug test, we have curfews, we have a house manager on site every day. So I have to deal with those issues a lot. Usually it's not great when my phone rings and you know, at 8 or 10 at night and I have to deal with those
Right.
issues, but it still keeps me connected to the clients and, you know, in the mix, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's totally normal. Like, as we grow and change, it's impossible for us to personally work with the clients. And for myself, I mean, I work with the clients once a week. I coach CrossFit, and that's my
Cool.
interaction with them. And yeah, I actually love it because
I bet.
I get to, well, I get to boss them around and they're appreciative of it. So it's awesome. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's kind of like that, but it's just seeing people get well and better, and it keeps it,
Yeah.
at group level. Because what I found in the past is if I personally get connected with a client, they want to skip all the people to get to me, and it bypasses all my people below it, which disempowers them, whereas their specialty, and that's what they're there to do. So I almost kind of purposely keep
Yeah.
somewhat of a distance from the clients themselves as they're going through recovery, just to keep them focused on what they need to focus on and not to
Sure.
dismantle the system that needs to be in place to get them the best help they can have.
I understand that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and it's, it is what it is. It's growing pains. And it sounds like you had pretty amazing growth, really, for like 4 years. That is excellent growth. Like that's really awesome. So really
Yeah.
well done to you on that.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of support and the gentleman that was when it was just he and I, his name's Lewis Edwards. So Lewis is a KDAC 2 and he became the director of client care at Touchstone. He's also my partner with the sober living environments. So he
Mm-hmm.
and I have worked together the whole time, and a lot of the credit definitely goes to him and goes to the staff that we've hired. Like I think that's if I can take credit for anything, it's hiring a really good staff and
Mm-hmm.
like putting the right people in place to facilitate that growth, you know, and
Yep.
I've been blessed. Like the people that I hired, especially in the beginning, were all people I had relationships with. I knew they had work experience. I could count on them. And so I built this like core group of 5 or 6 people that I could trust. And I knew it didn't need to be micromanaged. Like I
Yep.
could give them a project, they're going to take care of it. And I can trust them to do it to the best of their ability. So, um, you know how hard that is these days to like find people like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm
so,
very blessed. I have a core group, mostly my executives. I've been doing this a lot longer, so I've been blessed to have them with me for like 20 years. So
oh, wow, that's
there
great.
is nothing more important than, and I know that's why I'm still here all these years later. It's because of
Sure.
that exact reason. It's having the right people in place that are not focused on money. Not to say,
Mhm.
they shouldn't make money. It's a hard freaking job. Everybody
It
should
is.
make money doing this, but that's not why they're doing what they're doing. They do what
Yep.
they do because they love it. They themselves have overcome addiction. We found their niche of what they're really good at, trained them on that. And like you said, the trust factor, there's nothing like that. Like I know without a doubt, if I'm out of town, if there's something that happens, somebody's going to handle it and they're going to handle it correctly and they'll let me know. And if not, they'll reach out to me. There's also
Yep.
that mutual connection that you don't have to figure it out on your own. Let's figure this out together.
Sure.
Not one person has the answers for everything, especially as your organization gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so like let's lean on each other and help each other to be the best we could possibly be for the greater
Yep.
good of all the clients.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Most of the 5 or 6, I think it was 6. So most of the 6 people that we started out with, there's still 5 that are with me. So
Yeah.
the core group has stayed, and you know, one moved on, and that's okay. Like a
Yes.
really good opportunity was presented, and good for that person. I mean, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
as we open new facilities, like this Bakersfield that I'm at now, and we opened Visalia Recovery Center, which is a PHP IOP in Visalia. We opened 2 inpatients in Fresno. So as we open these new facilities, my core people that I trust are like taking over facilities and like overseeing the whole thing. And they're so capable. It like, thank God, because it makes my job so much easier. It's very I'm very lucky to have such a good group like it sounds you yourself work with. So
Yeah, well, and like you said, they're handling stuff so that you can be kind of 3,000 feet above, sort of looking and controlling the whole thing without having to micromanage little details of
sure.
stuff that they're more than capable of handling.
I struggle with that sometimes. Do you
Mm.
ever struggle with that?
Yeah, like like wanting to maintain control or
Well,
delegating.
that, but like just wanting to, well, I always want to jump in and help
Oh
when
yeah.
sometimes I should just get out the way.
Well, yeah, I I I can be both. I try to let people, do their own thing, but man, there's just certain things I like to stay in control of. I want to
Yeah,
help. I know
sure,
I can help. If I hear something, like for me, I always like, no, if I hear about it, I'm supposed to do something about it. So I don't second guess that. I will
sure.
jump right in and help or give my opinion or thoughts. Obviously, I've been doing this the longest of all of us. So I also trust in myself, but in my mind, if it comes on my plate, I'm supposed to deal with it somehow, some way.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean like I'm disempowering the people that work for me and taking over and doing their job. It's more for me just gentle guidance that's not doing that, disempowering them. Because you disempower the people that work for you that are helping the clients. The clients are going to pick up on that right away and go
for
straight to you.
sure. Yep, yep, that's true. That happens
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just part of the learning and growing and as long as you stay, I think, adaptable and able to pivot, like the growth like you've seen, that's totally doable. I think it's when people get sort of, just dinosaured, like unwilling to change this work. This has always worked. It's always worked this way. Like in our line of business, that cannot work with all the
Sure.
laws and changes and insurance and emissions. There,
Yeah,
you cannot just set it and forget it. Like it is a
yeah.
constantly evolving thing that you have to stay on top of.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. Especially I'm learning because I've only
Mhm.
overseen inpatient now for 3.5 years or so. But it's so true with inpatient care. It's like the requirements change all the time, whether it's the DHCS or
Mhm.
insurance policies or yeah, it's always
Yeah,
shifting.
Joint Commission, they want their whole list
Yeah,
of things that are outside of what the state wants. So now you're keeping
yeah,
multiple books and
yeah,
records for all the different and insurance. That's a whole nother one. So now you have like three sets of books on top of your banking and however you're doing that. Four
yeah.
sets of books. Like it's
Yeah.
it's freaking crazy the amount of hoops that we have to jump through just to run a drug rehab in California.
That's true. Yeah. I think that's why I love it. I'm kind of a multitasker and I know I have ADHD to the max. So like having all this stuff that I'm responsible for, it's perfect. It keeps me busy.
Well, that's good. You thrive in that. That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually do as well. Like honestly, if it was the same thing every day, I would get super bored and probably go stir up shit just to have something to do. So I feel like I fell into the right profession this whole time because it is
For sure.
literally never boring. In fact, if it's boring, something's wrong. Something is going on. Like,
Yeah.
why the hell is it so
Something's
quiet
about to
right now?
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't enjoy those boring moments at all because it's just getting ready for something bigger, badder, better that you need to put your attention on.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I like that you guys do the full continuum of care. We do as well. I mean, I think it's imperative for anybody going into treatment to be able to, have that time away, the detox, the res, and then be able to continue the work after they go back into their environments or go into
Yep.
an SLE. As we both talked about earlier, it's not like I did it, I'm done, I'm fixed, move on. Like there needs to continue that help and that connection for
Yep.
people so they don't feel like so alone or out there on an island or I did all the work, now I'm better, I don't have to do anything. Like it is so vital to continue that care after treatment.
I agree. Like with in our area, and I'll speak for Fresno, the recovery community has grown so much over the last 4 or 5 years. There's so many things to do. Like we have
Mm.
like sober softball leagues, and we have bowling leagues, and there's indoor soccer, and there's like people that all go to the gym together every day. We have a ton of meetings, retreats. Like there's so many things going on that our clients have access to while they're an outpatient.
Mm.
that we like. I feel like it's our job, first of all, to stabilize and to make sure that they're safe and to try to get them ready for outpatient while they're in inpatient. And then once they're an outpatient, like it it is my main focus is to get them connected with support. So make those connections and like build new relationships and have healthy relationships. And the ability to do that is it makes all the difference. So that's the main reason that Lewis and I started opening sober livings is we wanted to have a safe environment for people to heal and to have access to treatment. We give them rides to and from group every day. We make sure that they have activities to do on the weekends and during the week, and they're going to meetings, and there's the accountability piece that's huge too.
Mm.
So I agree with you. I think once a person is an outpatient, it's like it's pedal to the metal time, and it's time to start doing the work. They're stable now. They're ready to at least they're pointed in the right direction, and
Mhm.
God willing, they continue down that road. And in in Fresno County, at least, there's so much opportunity for people in recovery nowadays. It's really cool to see.
Dude, that's super good. That's super great to hear about. I don't know that we have so many opportunities like that over here, but um why not create that? And I
Yeah.
think you hit on like the key thing, like, and it's what comes up for us over and over again. Well, especially with the CrossFit piece, community. It's all about community.
Yep.
And I think part of like why you've seen such a big boom is because the pandemic was opposite of community. The pandemic was
Sure.
isolation. And I think, we saw addiction get 1,000 times worse than it already was from people who weren't even addicted prior now have, problems with it because of how people, dealt with what was being imposed with all of that. And so I like to think of like CrossFit and rehab as like the anti of addiction because you're around people, they're holding you accountable. You get to see them every day. You get to, walk the walk together, sort of, go through the trials of fire together. And then, like you said, being able to have that community after they leave is paramount, because you can't do it alone. Like it's important to have like-minded people around you. And for a lot of people, they don't know anybody like that. Like their whole world was consumed with people who were like them in the past, which was,
Mhm.
drinking, using, addicts, like doing shitty things to each other. So
Yep.
it's like finding and creating that whole new group, I think is just paramount to people's success going forward. And not saying like to their sobriety, but their connection and their quality of life. Like people can be sober but miserable. The
Yep.
community helps them not be miserable because they're around people who are doing good things with them.
Yeah, yeah, that's apparent. Like just looking at our like the outcome measures and seeing how many people achieve long-term sobriety, which let's gauge it at 1 year or more of sobriety. And how many people achieved long-term sobriety last year that went through our program that was involved in the sober living, went to like recovery softball and went to the outings, so like the men's retreat, and the numbers are staggering. Like the contrast, like the people that got involved in community and got engaged in their recovery and built those
Mhm.
relationships. I mean, I think the last time I checked, it was like triple. It was almost
Wow.
triple the success rate, which,
Yeah.
our success rates in this field they look horrible when you first glance at them because you think, oh, 10%, that is bad. But
Hmm.
that's this episode. Like, we see so many people readmit and try again. And those numbers grow if you look at like a bigger period of time. But when you involve like what you're saying, the community aspect, and when you're getting people who really want to change and they're looking for that community and that sense of purpose, those people are very likely to get better.
Absolutely. And it's just like anything, like the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. So
Yep.
if you're putting your heart, soul, attention, time into community and recovery, you're going to get so much more out of it. If you go out there solo, like I'm fixed, I'm going to just go do my normal life. It's not an easy road.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yep. Yeah,
And that's where it's important, like you talked about in the beginning, where we have families on board, because again, we need their support to support their loved one, to establish these communities and lean into them and hopefully be part of them with them, so that it's not, a solo activity. If that's, when they're leaving, they want to continue that relationship with their loved one in that
sure.
capacity.
Yeah, hopefully it's a healthy enough relationship to be mended. That
Right.
I'm sure you've seen this for years, but a lot of times people come into treatment to get off of drugs and alcohol, but then they go right back to the same toxic environment
Yeah.
that they came from, and it seldom works out well. And I mean, I'm guilty. I did the same thing when I first went to treatment. Um, but it's hard. It's hard probably the hardest thing I did was to cut off those old relationships, the ones that I knew were no good for me, whether it was family or not, like whether it was somebody that I loved or I felt like I loved. And I eventually knew, like, I just can't associate with this person anymore. And I hope they get better on their own. And if they do, my door's open. But that was the hardest thing I did, getting
Hmm.
like engaging in my recovery, was identifying and cutting off those toxic relationships. That was really hard. And when you're in your addiction, at least for me, I felt like my problem was the Oxycontin. My problem was the alcohol. It's
Hmm.
not, I'll pick a name. It's not Sarah that, I have this horrible relationship with, that we're calling the cops on each other every other night. It's not Sarah, it's the drugs. And if I just remove these drugs, everything will be fine. It's not the case.
It's not the case. And identifying and handling toxic people is not easy. Setting boundaries as addicts, that's not easy. Um, and so we have, in fact, I was talking to a girl after class last night who's going through that part of our program where you identify toxic people, looking through your phones, your pictures, your stuff like that. And the initial response she had is, I'm the toxic person. As I'm looking at all of this stuff, I'm realizing it's me. And so, for us to be able to talk through that, and it's like, yes, but it is you. And I'm glad you see that. But also, who are you surrounding yourself with that's bringing out that bad side of you? So it's
Sure.
like, awesome. And I said, look, the fact that you identify yourself as one of the problems, you're heads and shoulders ahead of a lot of people who are like, oh, it's them. That's why I have a problem. So the fact that you're saying, actually, it's me and it's not them, that's good. But
Yep.
there is a combination of both, and they take action and boundaries and sticking up for yourself in ways, even if you don't feel comfortable about it. And it's like a whole new learned process that's not just like innately known. Like they have to learn it and they have to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I It's just the serenity prayer. It's like
Mm,
it's such a big part of my recovery journey. And sometimes I sometimes I wish more people would say it to themselves. And like, especially when we're dealing with like a family member who brought their loved one in, who is, obviously we're all part of the problem. We all have ownership in any problem, right? There's something we
mhm.
could have done better. At least that's my experience.
Sure.
Um, Sometimes I want to teach people what the serenity prayer means, and then have them look at, like, okay, what can you control? You can't control this part. You got to let it go. You can control this part over here. Focus on that. And I mean, heck, I struggle with that
Yeah.
sometimes, but
Yeah.
it's something I spot all the time. It's like, okay, what can I fix? Let's focus on that part, and let's let the rest go.
Yeah. And again, it's a hard process, especially for control freaks. You want to fix everything. Like, let's just fix it. And some things
Yep.
you got to accept the things that you cannot change. And that's
Mhm.
usually people. And, they'll get there when they can. And you got to give them grace on that. Let them
Yeah.
go through their own process with it. But we can only be accountable and responsible to ourselves and our actions and what we do with ourselves and our words and how we treat people.
Yeah. I think it's great that you guys do CrossFit with your clients. That's really smart. I think, like, building community, that kind of kills two birds with one stone. And
Yep.
because, like, I mean, I'm all about the physical fitness, and like in putting that as part of a person's recovery process, however that looks, obviously if I'm 75, it's going to look different than if I'm 20, but it's a very important part. I think feeling better and getting those endorphins and like
Mhm.
just just engaging in healthy activity. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, like that girl that stayed after to talk to me, she was having a really bad day going through all the toxic stuff, thinking it's her. She wanted to get dismissed and get excused and go lay in bed and cry, but she showed up and worked out. And, I could see she was going through it
hmm,
but I kept sort of gently pushing her. And sure enough, at the end of it, there's just tears and gratitude. And we could talk about what she was working through and the fact that she showed up and then felt better. It's like, yes. So how does that translate out into life? Like, you continued to show up and you felt better for it. And it's that exercise component where because I think that's the easiest one for people to not show up for. Oh, I'm tired. I don't feel good. I don't want to get
sure.
hurt. I want this. I want that. It's like, just show up and do the work. And like I told her, there's not been one day that I ever went and worked out that I felt, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But
Yep,
there's been many days where I was like, oh, I got all this going on. I can't go work out. And I continue to feel guilt over that because I
yep,
knew I could do it. I knew I should do it. I let myself off the hook from doing it. And then I felt bad and guilty about it physically and mentally because I knew I could do it. And I was just, in my feels or whatever it is. And so then
yep,
the more you can push through those things and be there for yourself and push yourself through the hard times, then you start to show yourself what you're capable outside of here, outside of work. I don't want to do that, but I did it. And thank God I did. And I feel better because I did.
yep, yep. I agree. When I skip a workout in the morning, I usually wake up really early, and the first thing I'll do is lift weights or do cardio or something. And
Mm,
when I skip it, it's those exact same excuses. Like, I know I just need a little bit more sleep today, or
mhm.
I have to work early today. And I'll do that maybe once every couple weeks. I'll skip a day, and I always regret it every time.
Every single time.
My
Yeah.
mental health, like that whole day, it's nagging at me, and
Yeah.
I'll think things like, my mind would work better if I would have just worked out this morning. My
Yeah.
attitude would be better if I would have just worked out this morning. Yeah, I
But that's a
totally agree.
process too, like especially for someone who's never worked out, like learning how to get yourself through that, learning and giving yourself patience with, I didn't show up, this is how I felt. I did show up, this is how I felt. Like it's a whole learning process for
Sure,
people overcoming addiction because all they know is that instant gratification. Either I need to
sure.
feel good or I have to put the pain at ease. So instant gratification, and
Mhm.
that becomes their world. So the slower growing like process, it's not instantaneous. It does take time to get to that point where, man, I've been doing CrossFit for probably 4 years, 5 years, and I was having a hard day. And my son was like, "Hey, mom," and I'm like, "Yeah, stress, work, this, that." He's like, "When's the last time you worked out?" And I was like, damn, dude. Holy shit. You're right. It's been days because I've been doing this project,
Sure.
this thing. And I quit working on myself. And now look at how I'm stressed and I'm feeling a certain way. And that's where I knew I turned the corner with exercise. I'm like, ooh, the fact that when I'm not working, that's how I feel. And thank God my son pointed that out because now I want to get in the gym and work out all those demons as it should be, or all the
Yep.
different things, start feeling good with myself, start, not stressing over the other stuff because now we're feeling better, doing better, looking better, all the things.
Yep. Yeah. It's neat to see when people get out of actually when they're still an inpatient, we start taking them to the gym. And in Fresno here in Bakersfield, we'll have an on-site gym, which is really exciting. I'm stoked.
That's
But
amazing. Yeah.
it's so many of our clients start going to the gym religiously. Like they go 3, 4, 5 times a week, and it becomes a
Yep.
daily thing. And that helps build the community that I'm sure you're
Mhm.
experiencing with the CrossFit. It's a little different when you're going to a gym to work out by yourself. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I think CrossFit makes a little more sense to build
Yeah.
community.
It
Um,
does. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean we don't have people in our gym at lunch all doing their own things.
sure.
I don't like CrossFit. I'm a bodybuilder. It's like, okay, good. Go do your rows over there and your bench. And like we can accommodate that. I get it. Dudes like to do their thing. But again, even at lunchtime, when they're left to their own free will, there becomes this community in there. Like,
Sure.
let's all work out at lunch. So
Yeah.
um But again, it's attracting those like-minded people. And I know what you mean, because sometimes a lot of people just put in their headphones, I'm just going to do my own thing, and they're missing out on the beauty of going through all this together and working out
Yeah.
together and getting those wins together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing that you have that as part of your curriculum and on site as well.
Yeah, so we have an alumni um, that we hired a few years ago. He's got about 4 years now of sobriety. He's great, and he's a physical trainer.
Mm.
And we've hired him at multiple facilities where he'll come and he's our health coach. So every level of care has a day with the trainer, and he'll come and sometimes he'll put meal plans together for them. He'll spend one-on-one time, but he'll go with them to the gym and like set up a workout regimen for them. So and everyone loves this guy. You know, he's like uber fit, but he's really fun and like charismatic, and he's always got a positive attitude. And yeah, it's been a game changer for our program, because he's really good at getting people excited about exercising and like excited about getting back and getting physically fit. So yeah, I'm really happy that it's part of our curriculum too.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and getting excited is a big part of it, because if they look at it as a task or something they have to do, or it makes them feel bad afterwards, like you're not going to have much success for them. But if they're getting like the wins and they're excited to go work out because they're like hitting PRs or whatever they're doing, just that excitement around like fitness and good health over addiction. I mean, I
Sure.
feel like that's an amazing substitution, because if you're feeling good and you're doing all the work, then you start looking good, and then you have confidence, and then you're able and willing to do more things. The hormones are moving, you're sleeping better, you're eating better, you're feeling better. It's just like it all works together in such a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a huge component in successful recovery, is having fitness and health as part of that.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, the sleep part that you mentioned was huge
Yeah.
for a lot of our clients, and for me, like just exerting myself pretty extremely in the beginning, like running for miles, and I had to do that to sleep well at night. You know, I just so much stuff is going on upstairs when at least for me, when I had so much wreckage that was recent, and when I had so much work to do, and very little prospects. I'm speaking specifically about like right when I got out of prison and I was going to college and I couldn't find a job, and there's so much going on upstairs that I was obsessing about, that when I had to exercise like really vigorously so I could sleep well at night, and I'd have a positive outlook, and I would think, it's all going to be okay. I feel good. I'm keep sticking to my routine. I just got to stay the course, and everything's going to be okay. And if I didn't work out, it was like it's kind of scary how my mind could flip so easily if I would have skipped a workout day.
Well, and I think that that leads into like the bigger problem with a lot of rehabs these days is not having the exercise. Instead, here's a pill. You want to sleep at night? We got your
Yeah,
Ambien. Like it's fine. Like you don't have to, work out any demons or whatever. We've got a pill for
sure.
that. And then you're struggling waking up because you're so medicated when you went to bed. That's okay. We got a pill for that as well. And are you feeling a little groggy and tired, and you're sad
Take
about
this.
all the
Yeah.
stuff you're confronting? It's okay. We've got a pill for that as
Yeah.
well. And so it's like, and it's unfortunate, because I think a lot of people will go to rehab to get better, but really what ends up happening is they end up on a handful of meds to handle all these different conditions, instead of working through them and getting there naturally, and overcoming them, instead of just band-aiding them for some other day that I may or may not handle or confront.
Sure, I agree. When we were just an outpatient facility, and even still, I mean, we still have people coming to us for aftercare for like outpatient from another inpatient facility, but it was it was very common, especially from certain treatment centers, to have a lot of like a person coming directly from RTC, and they just have a laundry list of medications. And it was
Mhm.
this pretty consistent, like, oh, we know they're coming from this place. Get ready for a lot of med log like, work to
Yep.
do when he gets here. But then if they're coming from this place, it's not really a concern. Like
Yeah.
I learned a lot about different facilities just over time, and like by
Yeah.
by working with them with referral relationships, and kind of pick and choose who I want to align with and who I think has the same vision, you know,
Yeah.
and it's been really helpful to,
I like that. And there's just not a lot of people because insurance is so driven by, they pay higher rates if you give people more meds, if, so it's like, it's such a tough industry that we're in where insurance and big pharma and Matt and all of it is working together where they just want to give the instant fix, which is just, okay, give up your alcohol, but now you're sober, but you have 8 different medications, but it's okay because you're sober now. It's like, but no, you're not. You just gave up the alcohol and now you're addicted to all these fucking 8 prescriptions that they gave you. Like, that's not fixing, helping, doing anything. It's just substituting. Now you have a different dealer. It's not the liquor
yeah,
store, it's a pharmaceutical
yeah,
company.
it's a different crutch.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a,
Well, and it's unfortunate because that is the vast majority of what's out there. Besides people like you and me, there's not a whole lot of us because the system is not set up for people like you and me and our methodologies to help people with diet, exercise, community, all the things to actually help them really overcome an addiction. It's not
sure.
set up that way. It's meant
Yeah.
to, oh, good, you're here. Insurance doesn't want to pay for rehab. So here's your outpatient, here's your medications. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I've some of the things I've learned since getting into this field are like kind of scary, you know, and
Yeah.
then, but there are like so many beautiful things about what we do and the opportunities that have, like we have at our fingertips to help people. I try to focus on like, because I know I will not work at a facility that operates that way. It's not going to happen. So like that's what I can control. I'm controlling that. And then like to have the opportunity to like to build a program and to decide like what is our curriculum and like have input on every part of it. It trips me out still that I get to do.
How
Yeah.
fun. Isn't that creation fun? And then seeing it in place. And
Yep.
you mentioned something earlier, and I love this. And I think this should be highlighted because this has been a big successful action since we started Elevate. And it sounds like you're doing the same, which is outcome studies, which is
Sure.
accountability for your processes and procedures by an independent source who says, wow, yes, look at their success rate, 50% or whatever it is, way above the industry norm. I feel like all rehab should be responsible for outcome studies of
Sure.
what they're actually putting out there. And that could help a lot of this stuff, but that's not necessarily, I mean, it's not law, it's not anything. They could do whatever they want, which most of them is find a sponsor, rack your head here for 30 days, and then, we'll send you on your way.
Yeah, when I first started, and it went like when I went through my first Joint Commission survey,
Mm.
they had asked about outcome measures, and I at that point, you know, I was brand new. It was just an IOP. Like we would call the clients 30 days, 60 days, 90 days after their discharge and see how they're doing.
Mhm.
That's how we gauged outcome measures, and I think that's still kind of standard for some places. But now
If
to
they're
have
joint commission, yes, it has to be to some degree.
Sure, sure. And so now with like as we've grown, we've been able like we have an app that all of our clients have and we can stay in touch that way. It's HIPAA compliant. And then there's surveys and there's all these things that we can stay in touch with our alumni for as long as they're willing to stay in touch with us. And like our outcome measures are based on actual surveys, like you know, BAM IOPs and PHQ-9s, and like these different surveys that our clients are taking after discharge. So we can track all kinds of metrics, and it's pretty neat to how that's evolved.
Yeah.
Also, it tells us where we need to improve. Like you see the numbers fluctuate, and usually you can pinpoint why.
Yep.
Usually. So it's pretty neat. I agree. And I mean, outcome measures, I can't think of a more important that data set than what are my outcomes? Like isn't that why we do this? So like,
It's why we do this. It's not why all people with rehabs do this. I mean, they build a lot of rehabs, and I'm sorry, I know I'm like slamming all other rehabs, but this is why people don't get the help they need because,
yeah,
other rehabs build their model on people relapsing and
yeah,
coming back so that
that's
they can get higher levels of care paid by insurance. Like they
yeah.
literally set up their systems for clients to fail
Wow.
because it pays them better. I know, like you
Yeah.
said, that's some of the dirty stuff that goes on where it's like, I could never be a part of that and feel good about that.
Yep. Yeah. And I think, I mean, you hear about it, and I've spotted it a few times. And I just, it's unfortunate. I mean, to, to a lot of people, it's a way to make money. And,
Right.
that's not, if you're, I feel like if you're in this for that reason, if you're doing this for that reason, it's going to show. Like it's not hard to spot those types of places, in my
Right.
opinion. So,
It's not, but if that's like 80% of what's out there, people get to think that's
oh
normal.
yeah,
That is how
I,
it is. Like
I
when you have
agree.
people that aren't in that box, they just think all the boxes are like this because
Mhm.
this is all they know. So it's like really important for people like you and me to get out there and say, hey, there is other ways. It's not all that way. There is this way
Sure.
too. And I
Yeah.
think that alone helps people go, oh my God, I'm not alone because I didn't agree with this or that or the label or the medications. And like, thank gosh you guys are there to be different than whatever is considered normal these days.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a potential client yesterday that was this person's experience was they'd been to rehab a couple times, and both times they felt like they were like cattle, basically. Like they're having labs run that they didn't need, and they're sending them out to
Mm,
these outside facilities and getting bills in the mail, like EOBs from their insurance that they had no idea they were getting billed for. And it just, it's unfortunate that I try to be as transparent with our clients
mhm.
upon admission, and oh no, well, I am fully transparent with our clients upon admission. And if anything comes up during their treatment episode that changes things, so we have to send them out to an outside provider or anything, like you have to communicate what you're doing and get their consent. And
Right.
so I think, yeah, we get a bad rap as an industry because of 80%, or the number that you
Hmm.
gave was 80%. And
Hmm.
it's unfortunate. I'm just proud that I don't put myself in that box.
Yeah. Well, I'm extremely grateful that you're out there doing like I'm doing and helping people in a way that I truly feel is the best way to help them, body, mind, soul, not just one or the other or partitioned. And truly, it sounds like you have an amazing community that you've created. Like I was listening to what you're saying about like the sober community and the sober houses and all the like activities that they can take part of. Like that is so amazing. And that makes getting sober like not so scary or boring or sad. It's like,
Yep.
you have a whole new life. Look, you can
Yep.
actually be present and enjoy these things and be part of these things. You don't have to just like be white knuckling it solo at home day after day miserable. Like there is another life outside of and on the other side of addiction.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Well, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you? Because I would love for them if they're, especially if they're in your Central Coast area, where they can get some great, effective treatment, all levels of care. Sounds like you've got that on lock as well.
Yeah, so the easiest way to get a hold of us is look at one of our websites. Our admissions lines are on there. It's the Touchstone Recovery Center.com. That's in Fresno, California. And then we have Visalia Recovery Center.com. That's in Visalia, California, smaller town in the Central Valley. And then Bakersfield Recovery Center.com. So very simple websites.
Yes,
Touchstone, Visalia, and
easy. Even
Bakersfield.
I could remember those. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean that's the easiest way. We have admissions people ready 24 hours a day to help. And I think since I started, like I told you, I did admissions myself for the first couple years. As we
Yeah.
grew, I stopped doing it, and now we have an admissions team. But just I emphasize this with all of the people that are looking for help. Like if you call Touchstone or Visalia or Bakersfield, you're going to get my admissions team, and their number one objective is to get you help. And we don't care if that's with us. We don't care if you have Medi-Cal. We don't care if you are a primary mental health, or if you like whatever, an eating disorder, whatever services you're looking for, their job is not completed until they've connected you with the appropriate resource. So, if we're not the best fit, that's okay. Like we're gonna point you in the right direction.
I love that. And we are the same because odds are, due to all the different circumstances, the majority of people that reach out to us, we're not able to help, but
Yep.
we are the same. We're going to get them where they can help, where the help is appropriate, because that's what people want, right? Like they
Yep.
need to understand it's a scary process. It's arduous. There's like so much to go through as a family member that's in crisis, as a person who's like thinking about giving up their lives. There is so much like high pressure situations that people are in and they don't know how to navigate it. And we don't expect them to know how to navigate it.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world and there's a lot of variables in order to even get somebody into treatment. And so, like
Sure.
you, we try to remove all barriers to entry, but a lot of times it's just not feasible or it's not appropriate for them to come to us or go to you. And so I love that you guys put as much attention on getting them the appropriate help for what they need, as
Yep.
opposed to, trying to shove it in your door of like what they're not looking for or what's not best for them.
Yep. Yeah, that's paramount, is like, it's okay if we're not the best facility. It's okay. Like
Yeah.
I think a successful admissions person does exactly what you said, like gives them the appropriate admission, gives the appropriate resource that they need. Like, we can't help everybody. We're very good at substance use primary with co-occurring, but we can't, if a person has an eating disorder primary, there's no way we're gonna try to admit you. Like we're not the right place, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We get
yeah.
that a lot too. Here's the new one that we've been getting. It's becoming very commonplace. Service animals. Do you guys take service animals? People with
Oh,
service animals? I
I
was like,
mean,
wait, now this is the thing. Now we got to accommodate animals? Like we can't do
funny.
that.
It's funny you say that. Yesterday, I had that question, just
Mhm.
yesterday.
Yeah, I've been
But
hearing
yeah,
it a lot lately, and I'm like, oh my God, this is becoming the new norm, is the animals. We had one a couple weeks ago, a couple, which, as you know from those are difficult in themselves to help
sure.
both people, especially if you're thinking about helping both of them within your own facility. But
Yeah.
then couples now, and plus their full-size husky service animal. We're like, yeah, no,
Good
that's
luck.
one.
Yeah.
Not that we
Um,
wouldn't if we couldn't and we felt like we could be successful doing it, but sometimes there's just, like we talked about, a lot of barriers where we've seen it. And when you've been around a while, you know what's going to be successful and get
sure.
best care for the client and what
That's it.
is not.
That's it. Yeah. It's like that should be and it sounds like it is your number one consideration, is what's best for them. And a lot of times, like you said, it's not me. That's not Touchstone. It's not Visalia. But
Yeah.
yeah, my admissions guys, like myself, they're all of us. We have four now, actually. So all of us are like, engaged in our recovery, and we got into this field for the right reasons. And that is such a big deal to me. And you had mentioned it earlier about, your motivation. So is it to help people? Is it to do the right thing? Or is it money? And I'm really proud of my admissions team, because I know what their goals are.
Mhm.
Their goals are to help people. That's huge.
Yeah. Well, and I think because of what we also touched on earlier, the fact that we've all, been in recovery, overcome it, like you see this being the big problem with like uh private equity rehabs, right? Like when they buy a rehab who's doing really well with people like us, their first
Mm,
instinct is to replace the people with their people, which just, college graduate, I learned everything. Like, what do you mean? I got the master's in this, but they have no like real life experience in how to
sure.
deal with people of our quote unquote kind, or the staff of our nature, or because we're there to help, they're in there now thinking profit, profit, profit,
Yeah.
which
Bottom line.
unfortunately hinders a lot of what we're trying to do, which is put our attention on giving the person the adequate help and chance that they need. And so
Yep.
that's where I see that going wrong as well. It's like you replace the people that are there for the right reasons with people that are there for profit minded, and you lose stuff in the process.
Yeah. You lose the heart of the facility.
Yeah.
The culture
Yeah. And
dies.
I think that was a big thing that, we just went through, I want to say like 5 years ago, why the whole industry got really shook upside down, because they felt like they could just plug anybody in and get the same result. And I think now, fast forward, they're realizing maybe that's not the case.
Sure. Yep. I'm seeing that as well.
Yeah, awesome. Quick, let me ask you one more question. Trends. What are you seeing coming in your doors? What is, because I have my own answers, but what are you seeing on your end?
Do you mean like DOC?
Yeah, yeah. Like, what is the demographic, the DOC, the drug of choice? What are you seeing?
Sure. We typically have like in the Fresno area, we're an in-network facility, so we can help a lot of people. Um, I mean, our average age is around 35 year round, which is really high for I mean, in my experience, it's pretty high
Mhm.
for a substance use treatment facility for inpatient, especially. But lately,
When
I've
you
been
say 35, you mean 35 years old?
yes,
Yeah.
35 years old is
Hmm.
about our average. We have people up to their 60s, 70s, 80s sometimes.
Yep. Hmm.
Usually it's, 35 to 45 is about our sweet spot.
Hmm.
Lately it's been a pretty young crowd, a lot of fentanyl addicts.
Mm.
So, and it's gone up. Like, a couple years ago, we were hovering around 80% alcohol,
Hmm.
20, the other 20% was a mix, probably in order of fentanyl, methamphetamines, benzos, probably in that order. Now
Hmm.
it's probably up to at least 15 to 20% or fentanyl just alone.
Yeah.
We still
Fentanyl,
obviously,
ketamine, throw that
yeah.
in the
Oh
mix.
yeah, that's in the mix. Yeah,
Yeah. Kratom, that's a new one. You
oh
can get
yeah, yeah,
anywhere.
good old
Yep.
Kratom. Yeah,
Yeah.
we see that a lot. It's usually an opiate addict that tried to switch flavors.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
went to rehab once and then started using Kratom, and now they're hooked on Kratom.
Yep.
So yeah, that's
Yeah,
a tough
well,
one.
that what your trajectory, what you said, pretty much is exactly what I've witnessed. So, like 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, we were actually 50-50 almost, like alcohol and everything else combined. And then
Mhm.
as the pandemic wore on, like you mentioned, our number came up to about 80% alcohol,
Yep. Yep.
20% everything else. And again, that was due to people, now you can get delivered to your doorstep. Now people are day drinking because they don't have jobs anymore. Everything's remote. Like, so it skyrocketed up to 80% of our demographic being alcohol. And like you, now we're starting to notice that number come down a little bit. Equally as dangerous, just as bad, if not worse, because it's so socially acceptable and the damage it's doing on the body with no redeeming qualities. However, now we are
Sure.
starting to see that shift as well to fentanyl, to ketamine, to all the other things. So that is switching for us as well. So we're tracking right alongside of
Sure.
you on that.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the kratom, and I'm also seeing a lot more of people, young people especially, coming in and having psychosis from
Mhm.
smoking wax, like the really high THC content, and that's increased a lot over the last couple of years. Used to be
Mhm.
like once a month. We admit 350 people a year ish in Fresno, maybe a little less last year. So once a month, it's about 1 out of 30 would come in and be in psychosis because of wax. Now it's got to be at least once every couple of weeks. So it's gone
Wow.
up significantly.
Wow. Yeah, and it's just so easily attainable. Like I just don't see that changing. In fact, it's going to be like the new alcohol where it's just unfortunately so readily available, so socially available
Yeah,
that starts to become like the new overwhelming norm, unfortunately.
sure. Yeah, that's a possibility.
Yeah, and it is difficult. Like the younger, you see them, and we saw this, and my big shock was with alcohol with the younger generation. And I know there's two schools of thought. Some are like, oh, alcohol's not as bad because, kids don't go out anymore. It's not the same sort of social situation as like when I was a kid, and that's
Mm.
we couldn't wait to do that. So there is some credence to that, but also there is still a lot of kids who were maybe scared of fentanyl, and so they chose drinking as a safe alternative, but now they're having those long-term effects of like DTs and
Yeah,
seizures and things like that. And I think people think because it's just alcohol and they're young, they're not going to have these physical effects, but they have
sure.
and they do, and it's scary and it
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Yeah, it's so alcohol has always been underestimated by family members, by the alcoholic themselves, but yeah, the detriment that it brings to our body. And I mean, heck, there was a 28-year-old young man that died from alcohol withdrawal last year. There was a 32-year-old female that we had die of alcohol withdrawal. It's scary. And to see how fast a person can deteriorate when they're drinking a fifth of alcohol a day,
Yeah,
like in a short amount of time, it's scary how unhealthy they get.
it's
And
crazy.
yeah, and then but because it's just alcohol, it's not considered as serious, which
Right.
I disagree with 100%.
No,
I
I
know
mean, it's just straight poison. That is what
yeah,
it is. There's not
I did
even
a lot
one
more.
redeeming molecule in it.
I did a lot more damage to
Mhm.
myself and to my environment with alcohol than I did with most other drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to figure out like if it's because of the severity, like we talked about, of what we've been seeing with people dying. Like we had 2 people last year that came in that were so messed up when they came in, we had to immediately take them to the hospital and they were put in medically induced comas because the
Wow.
DTs were going to be so bad, they would have died. And
Wow.
so again, the severity there, like it's astounding and it's not talked about, it's not publicized, people don't know it, and so therefore it becomes dangerous because if they try to quit on their own, they can like literally kill themselves from the
Sure.
DTs and the different things like that.
What's the highest BAC you've ever seen? Blood alcohol.
uh I've heard, I personally not, I'm not, but I've heard about some. What do you got? What was yours?
Recently, 0.46.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Wow, that's frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am going to find out though, because now I'm intrigued to see. And it was probably one of those people that we had to immediately take to the hospital because it was so scary. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe you showed up this way. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to find out and I'll let you know about that
Okay,
one.
thank you. I, I I
Awesome.
I felt like that was the highest I'd ever heard of. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm going to write that down because I'm now super intrigued. I want to find out what's the highest that we've seen, just out of curiosity.
the
All right,
competition.
awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show, for being there, for doing what you do, the dedication, the purpose, the desire to help others, have new lives. I know firsthand, obviously, it's not easy work, but I'm extremely grateful to know that there's people out there like you doing what you're doing to help people like us.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on, and it's an honor to do what we both do, and it's it's a dream come true, to be honest. Like we have hard days, as you well know, and there's a lot of failure, quote unquote failure, but the successes are the most beautiful thing. And it seems like um, it just seems like we're making a difference, and I feel it in my heart. Like I know when I come to work every day, I'm proud of walking in the doors and like putting my time and effort into helping people change their lives. So it's an honor really to do that. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll have all your contact information in the show notes. So if anybody's looking for treatment in your area, they can easily look you up and hopefully get started with you right away.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was nice
Awesome.
to
Thank
meet
you
you.
for coming on the show.
Thank you.